Is March 8th. It's a Wednesday, and my name is Bill McCamley. I am a New Mexico State representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla with your legislative update for the day. So the three things I want to talk about today start with early childhood education. There has been a long-term effort here in the state to take a portion of the proceeds that come from the New Mexico State Permanent Fund and use it to fund early childhood education. So New Mexico has about $20 billion in three different what we call permanent funds, so monies that have been set up since the beginning of the state to have oil and gas revenue go into those, and then like any kind of endowment or bank account, we make money off that comes back into our budget. And there has been an effort to spend a large portion of that on early childhood education. Now, Republicans really don't like this because they view those permanent funds as very sacrosanct, as dogma, and say if we touch those now, then we're not going to have the money down the road to be spending on things that we need down the road. Now, Democrats, myself included, on the House of Representatives side, really argue that if we don't spend that money now and invest in things that work like early childhood education, then we're not going to have the economy down the road that's going to be built up for when oil and gas revenues run out. And I really want to point out that all this data shows that the more money you invest in early childhood education, in getting kids a better education before they hit kindergarten, has all sorts of returns on that investment down the road. So kids are better prepared going into school, they end up reading better, they're more adjusted, therefore they get better jobs, they end up less in prison. In fact, the number we heard today that for every dollar you invest in early childhood, $6 is returned over the life of that child. And I think that's a really good investment, so I voted for that. That goes over to the Senate. We've done this before and it's failed over there. They can be a little bit more conservative, but maybe there will be a difference this year. If it passes, it's a constitutional amendment, it will be on the ballot in 2018 so that you, as a New Mexico voter, if you are one watching this, can make a decision on that. The second thing that got passed is House Bill 412. This is a version of gross receipts tax reform. I've talked about this a fair amount on a lot of these broadcasts over the years where we in New Mexico have carved out an exception in gross receipts tax for this and this and this and this. And when you do one or two of those, it's fine. But when you do a lot of them, it really hurts the process. Remember, the gross receipts tax is basically our state sales tax. And if we have to raise a certain amount of money, but we carve out a lot of things, then the rate has to go up to raise that same amount of money. And so in Las Cruces, for instance, if you buy a refrigerator or you get a service like a massage, you're paying 8.3%, and that's really, really hard on small business. Now, the controversy has always been, do we put a tax back on food? That was always the really controversial one because it's so much money, but a tax on food is very regressive. So I'm not on the tax committee anymore, so I've worked on this in the past, but Jason Harper, a Republican, and Carl Trujillo, who's now running the tax committee, have really worked hard to find some ways of eliminating a bunch of those taxes and knocking the rate down a couple of points, but keeping the tax off of food. And that's what we passed out of the House today. That goes over to the Senate. The bad news, the really bad news, is that the governor decided to veto our bills to start industrial hemp research at New Mexico State, aiming to start a hemp industry here in New Mexico as we move forward with that industry. Remember, hemp is basically the cannabis plant without any THC in it. And it's grown all around the world, and we use it for all sorts of things here in the United States. So we use it for seat cushion inserts and bath oils and just a whole bunch of other stuff. In fact, we import somewhere between $400 and $600 million of hemp from Canada every year because it's illegal for us to grow it, but we use it all the time, which is really, really dumb. And there's finally a realization in the country starting to come around that even if you don't like cannabis because of the societal impacts and the THC and all that, you can still grow this and use it for all sorts of things. For instance, the Constitution is written on hemp paper. So we passed that, a research bill that the federal government is now allowing out of the House and the Senate. The governor decided to veto it today, and frankly, I don't know why. It will create a lot of jobs. It's a very high-value plant that uses very little water, which is perfect for the desert environment that we mostly live in. She's been very anti-drugs, and I'm just not certain why the argument that this is not marijuana, this is not cannabis, is not reaching her. So that's really disappointing. That's kind of the way it goes. So as always, thanks a lot for watching this. I really appreciate it. And if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any other issues, I'd love to try to answer them for you. Have a great day. I'll be back at you tomorrow. Bye.